Good evening and welcome to this special broadcast. It's episode 15 of Let's Talk Justice, Living Your Rights. My name is Musutu Stone and welcome to this evening as we take you through some of your rights and some of those legal issues that you need to live with on a daily basis. And to some people, domestic violence has been viewed as a private matter or a personal matter. But you know, this is a criminal issue. This is a criminal offense which is punishable by law. The government, through various departments, has introduced and implemented various pieces of legislation and support programs to help curb domestic violence. And tonight, we are educating on Domestic Violence Act number 116 of 1998. We are also highlighting the various types of domestic violence. We are also unpacking an application for protection order, either by the lady or the gentleman, and to explain as well the negative effects of domestic violence. Raising awareness is also important of victim support services for victims of domestic violence. Good evening, Liperile, Sanbonani, Dumelang, wherever you might be, and thanks to all the radio stations across the 9 provinces who are joining us. And I am not alone, and as usual, she's always around here to come and share invaluable information with us. Her name is Advocate Praise Kambula. She's the head of promotion of the rights of vulnerable groups for the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Advocate, good evening once more and welcome.
Thank you. Siyabulela nakuba phulaphuli.
They would like you to put on the extra ears for us to be able to hear each other quite very well. Thank you so very much. Ungabulisa abaphulaphuli.
Diyabulisa kuba phulaphuli bonke.
All right. Now, Advocate, domestic violence. Let's start where many people say, I can't say anything. Uhlazo. It's a taboo to be talking about your relationship in one way or the other, and domestic violence is part of that relationship, and you find that people are not easily expressing themselves, and people sometimes do not see this as a criminal offense. Can you take us through that, please?
It is because, when you deal with domestic violence is quite intrusive. Because it's different from any kind of crime that you can have. Because with it, the perpetrator is the person that you know, is the person that you have a domestic relationship. So there are issues of trust in this relationship, and there are issues of support in other instances. So then it is one type of a crime that is quite difficult to crack, because of the you find that the victim of domestic violence will have ambivalence and feel like maybe there's going to be a change in this relationship because it never started like this. So it is the fact that you are dealing with a type of a crime that is based on what we are saying, the formation or the base of it's love. But then it is not love when it is abusive.
Yes.
And I think Abba Pulapuli need to know that.
All right. If you want to join our conversation tonight, it's on hashtag Let's Talk Justice. And also you can dial 0800 142 446. 0800 142 446. I can't hear myself quite very well, perhaps. And on social media, we are on Facebook, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, as well as Twitter at DOJ&CD _ZA. And Advocate, let's talk about the Act, where it comes from, and also take us through how the Act was put together so that it has a certain impact of what we are talking about tonight?
The Domestic Violence Act is just one of the brilliant pieces of legislation that our parliament has ever passed. It's one of the brilliant, because it is a piece of legislation that was put together with the mind of the victim or the mind of the survivor in mind. So it has a number of provisions in it that speaks to their needs, speaks to their insecurities, and try then to sort of help them to come to the system. Why it understands that when you are in an abusive domestic relationship, there are so many issues around you and in your mind that might make you not to step out of the abusive relationship. It is issues of financial dependence. It's the issues of children. What's going to happen if I leave and I don't have any income? What's going to happen to my children? What's going to happen to my son who is so attached to the father? Or what's going to happen to my daughter? So it's a number of issues that are there, and also the issue of further retaliation, because you'll find that what makes them not to come out of the abusive relationship, it is the fear of the unknown. What will happen to me when I go to court? Am I going to be embarrassed? Am I going to be humiliated? Am I going to be humiliated by friends? Am I going to experience a further retaliation? Is the issue of stigma attached to domestic violence that makes then many of them not to come out of the abusive relationship. It's what we normally call the cycle of violence. But the domestic violence then, it's got all those provisions that I think that we're going to talk about that are there then to assist the victim to come forward and be able to get justice. But of course, it also does have its flaws, as we are now in a process of amending it. But I would also like to say that what is prominent about it now, as we are talking about, is that it is finishing 20 years in implementation. That is going to be on the 16th of December. That is next month. It's going to finish 20 years in implementation. So it's quite an old piece of legislation that has been tested in a number of ways, that now as a country we are ready to amend it so that it becomes perfect for.
All right.
Or responsive, rather.
Yes, all right.
You can't have a perfect legislation.
Of course. I mean, as time evolves, it must evolve with time, of course. All right. Thank you so much for that allusion. And now, let's not forget as well that starting from in 2 weeks' time on the 25th of November up until the 10th of December, it will be the 16 days of activism against violence against women and children. Now, that in itself plays part in also saying no to domestic violence. And now, let's talk about the victims of domestic violence. Of course, we do know skyrocketing numbers have been coming in, year out. And the latest being victims, women has been part of that. And we hear quite a lot of well, it might not be domestic violence, but it's still gender-based violence.
Yes,
anyway.
it is. Yeah.
So the victims in this case, because we need to be clear when we're talking about gender-based violence and domestic violence, the victims in this case, who are we talking about?
You are, let me just say first that you are a complainant or a victim of domestic violence. If you have a domestic relationship with a person who is subjecting you to a form of domestic violence.
Yes.
So the domestic relationship that is in our country in terms of this legislation, it defines it very widely. And I think that I haven't seen any definition that matches the definition of South Africa in terms of domestic violence. So people who are, so you are a victim, you you are a victim of domestic violence, as I said, if you are in a domestic relationship. So what is a domestic relationship? A domestic relationship relates to parties who are in a relationship of marriage, or in a dating relationship, whether it is current or past, or in terms of marriage, it is by any law. So it could be by customary law, it could be by any other religion. So it's recognized as a marriage. So, and also then you are also in a domestic relationship if you are in an intimate relationship with that person, or a dating relationship, or you are in a romantic relationship as well. But it must not be, in terms of this legislation, it's a relationship when it comes to dating relationships and romantic relationships, sexual relationship. They are of any duration. So what it means is that if I met with you today and we started something together, which might be classifying it amongst these types of relationship that I've just mentioned.
Yes.
Maybe it's a dating, or it's a sexual relationship. And a sexual relationship, that's where then you will find that people have met and they are saying that, you know what, we just want to deal with one thing, and it must not have any heart connection. So that is what we are calling then a sexual relationship. It has nothing to do with love. It's just about us, satisfying our sexual desires. So that one, it is a sexual relationship of any duration. So I might meet somebody and have a sexual relation with that person that particular night or day. I already have a domestic relationship with that person.
Yes.
So that is what our act says. So, and it also says that it doesn't matter whether that sexual relationship continues or ends. I still have a domestic relationship with that person. And then it also then includes, if we are related and you are a parent to me and I'm a child, so I have a domestic relationship with you. And it also recognizes the relationships by adoption. So it's all kinds of those relationships, including, affinity, the relationship, the consanguinity. So it's all those, put together. But ours, as I said, that it goes beyond what other countries will classify as domestic relationship, because it also says that if we stay together under one roof, sharing residence, then we have a domestic relationship, whether we are related by blood or not. So that's where then, for us, it's a domestic relationship that goes beyond the usual types of relationships. But it has a trick then with the relationship of a person that I have when I'm sharing residence. I'm not sharing residence with you if we are not living under one roof. So if I am renting or maybe staying outside in your premises, then I don't have a domestic relationship with you. I have a domestic relationship with you, though, if we are in the same space,
staying in one room,
under one roof. Exactly. It doesn't matter. It does not even have to be one roof. You might be living in that room and I'm living in another room. But the moment that I have to step out of my room outside to get to you, then I'm not sharing residence with you. So I don't have a domestic relationship with you. So it's all of those that makes me then to say that if I'm subjected to an act of domestic violence in that particular relationship, then it makes me then a victim in terms of the Domestic Violence Act.
All right. That voice that you're hearing over there talking about domestic violence tonight is Advocate Praise Kambula, who is the head for Promotion of Rights and Vulnerable Groups Unit in the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Nake Mosotho Stone by name, and we are together up until 7:05. However, you can also join us on 0800 142 446. 0800 142 446. What are your experiences from Harib to Butlokwa, Hoyago, Kanyamazani, to go right up to Eshowe and in Gugule in Tigerberg? What do you see? We hear a lot of men killing their own partners. We hear a lot of women poisoning their own husbands. We hear different stories. We read about these things every day. And one of the biggest things, advocate, is that expressing these kind of criminal acts seems to be one of the most difficult rocket sciences we've ever had in human lives.
And they are particular acts. Now, if you are in an abusive domestic relationship, and you want to go to court and take a legal action, so you are not a victim of domestic violence. As I said, that there are actually, I've mentioned one, that you must have a domestic relationship with
We'll
that person.
talk about the types.
Yes.
All that stuff.
But you must also be subjected to an act of domestic violence. And an act of domestic violence then is defined by this piece of legislation as forms, types of abuse that constitute a domestic violence. So it's got the act then puts together it's 10 forms of abuse that builds what we call domestic violence. So I don't have to be a victim of a number of them for me to begin to take an action. So it is one act of domestic violence that qualifies me to go to court and apply for a protection order, because there are those as I said, that there are legal actions that the Domestic Violence Act provides. So one of them is applying for a protection order. But I would like them to say that, what are these acts of domestic violence? For me, if I am sitting at home, I'm waiting in one of our waiting areas at the court, so I need to know as to whether will I qualify to apply for a protection order. First, as I said, that you need to be the complainant. And to be the complainant, you must have a domestic relationship with that person. And then secondly, you need to be a victim of an act of domestic violence. So the acts of domestic violence, one is physical abuse, as we know about it. And many of our people are aware of the physical abuse. And they will even think that is the only type of abuse that constitute domestic violence. So with physical abuse, it is you applying physical force on me, but it is also you threatening me with violence. So threats of violence also constitute physical abuse. But then the person who's receiving the threat must believe that the person who is releasing the threat, that is the abuser, has the potential of carrying out that threat. So if you are saying to me right now and saying to Praise and say that, Praise, I'm going to kill you, and then I laugh at you and say, ooh, you think that you can kill me. So it doesn't constitute physical abuse. So meaning that I cannot go to court and apply for a protection order. And then you also have what we call the emotional, verbal and psychological abuse. They are all clubbed together because they have relation. Remember that if you verbally abuse me, you say that I am this, or maybe call me foolish. If I believe that, then it's going to lead to emotional abuse, from emotional abuse to psychological abuse. That's all those then put together. But there is one thing that I want to explain here, is that with verbal abuse, or let me say, that is with emotional, verbal, and psychological abuse, the act requires that act must be done repeatedly. But repeatedly, what it means is that it is a repeat if if you called me, let me just say that you called me, as I said, that you called me foolish, and I ended up believing that, acting it out, and it's now emotionally challenging me that you are calling me foolish. But they go further. Others, they use, a very degrading words, all right, to call, the victims.
Things we cannot say on air right now.
Exactly.
I can just imagine of a few.
Yes.
I can just imagine of a few.
But if you said it at this hour, I cannot, you said it once, that is this minute. You said it, and I cannot take everything and go to court and apply for a protection order, because the protection order say that it must be a repeated act. So, but it is repeated. If you're gonna call me again, irrespective of the duration or how much time had lapsed before you called me again, so I have a right to go and apply for a protection order on the ground of you having subjected me to emotional, verbal and psychological abuse. So people will think that it has to happen 100 times before I come. Repeated, it means that it was done once and then done for the second time. So it gives me the right then to go and apply for a protection order. And that also applies to harassment, because harassment is also another type of abuse. So it is harassment when you are following me, when you are sending me SMSs, pursuing me and telling me things that I do not want to hear, or when you waylay me, all those kinds of things, or maybe sending me photographs, because some others will send photographs of dead women, or send photographs of dead flowers, send photographs of dead cats, all of that, so as to threaten you. That is called harassment in terms of our legislation. So what it means is that I'm a victim of harassment, but with that, it also says, the legislation, that act of harassment must be repeated. So what it means is that if you send me one picture today and then you send me another picture, so you are harassing me because you have not done it once, you have done it twice. So it entitles me then to go and apply for a protection. Those are the issues that that people will say that it is because of that thing that it requires that it be repeated. But with these two types of abuse, now we are, as I said, that we are in a process now of reviewing the legislation and seeing as to whether is it necessary for us to remove that repeat, so that as it happens, a person is able to go. You don't wait for another time. But the repeating is applicable to only two forms of abuse, which is emotional, verbal and psychological abuse, and also harassment. So if we're talking about a physical abuse, there's no repeat.
Yeah.
So I go immediately. If you talk about sexual abuse, there's no repeat. I go immediately. And the same applies to economical abuse. So, and with the rest of the types of abuse. And if I can just mention with sexual abuse, people would think that with sexual abuse, I need to be sexually penetrated. The sexual slurs amounted to sexual abuse. And also when somebody is calling me, is doing anything that is sexual to me,
yes,
that is sexual abuse. Even when you are forcing me to do something that I do not want to do. Maybe it's something that you learned somewhere from a movie and all that, and then you come to your spouse or to your partner or your sexual partner, even with your sexual partner, and also your intimate partner. You cannot force a person to do something that is sexual, that person doesn't want to do. So it's not about sexual penetration. It's not about sexual penetration only. So I don't have to say that I have been sexual abused when I am raped. It goes beyond that. There are other instances of sexual violation that then constitute what we call the sexual abuse. And sexual abuse, and people will say that when it is sexual abuse, then I must be if we are in a marriage relationship, then because you have paid lobola for me, or you have given me a ring or a stone, and now you have every right to have sex with me.
I own you.
So yes, you own me because I gave you my yes, so you own me. So in terms of the Domestic Violence Act, it recognizes the sexual abuse between people who are married. All right?
All right.
Yes.
Advocate, let's talk to the people. Patco?
All right. Advocate, let's talk to the people. Patco?
How are you, Patco?
Kiyaphila.
Kiyaphila ndati.
Matekwane.
Matekwane abuti.
Tribo makadi ni tribo.
Temfela fu, Patco. Temfela fu. You know, you're going to be bombastic in African on me now. Okay, let's talk domestic violence. We'll talk me and you outside this thing.
All right, okay. Domestic violence, rural areas, and abayanga esikolweni abanalwazi malunga ne-domestic violence bayenza nje ne-domestic violence bayakwazi ezi-Department of Justice baye kubo bacacisele kuyawudoji sabo ukuba xa kuthethwa nge-domestic violence amuhamba ngapili liyena nto ibuza kuyapili yena. Then umbuzo wamesini uma uthethe nge-protection order, I think in South Africa we have 11 official languages. Why the protection order ingabhalwi ngeXhosa, ngeSotho, Sepedi, Setswana, njalo Afrikaans, all those languages, okanye isiNdebele, isiVenda njalo ngoba iba nzima kwabanye abantu kufanele ukuthi hayi nansi protection order akayazi ukuthi in that protection order ibuza kabili buzakararo that protection order just like the policy, funeral policy, because after 3 months, funeral policy. Or it's a lapse kind of thing. Then put that out well. Keep it season, you know. Never feel domestic violence. Well, Barone, Mayakuta, Malume, Zaluzala, but I'm the mining, it's 3 years about. Okumana Nyao Lagamuna, Nyao Labatumelan. Bazula minati mu rechavisande ante bazuzi upita indati wa meyena ubate kwa betani yamanzo walwanwa au kata mutaka ndati timreketi au tema kachel daka sinoma phudi haitali gidibana wena wapita ngimuthu hawo bayalwana and then usoba involve au tina ikabantu zwalo hello italukuzwa ngubani futata matsamayelena abe affected into this thing kyalwa ukuzamela utakala ni radio
Mara Patco tolebuyila ho.
Thank you, Mre.
All right, and we're back in GP. Abraham.
Hello, sir.
How are you doing, Abraham?
I'm fine, sir. And you?
Welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir.
All right, the stage is yours.
Good.
Any language in South Africa is welcome.
Oh, okay. Ngiyathokoza. Ngithanda ukulochisa no advocate Kambula lapho. Ngithokoze nabo bonke abaphathi lapho abanabo lapho. Nginenkinga engifuna ukuyibuza ku-advocate ukuthi kwenzeka umuntu angenza njani. Ngine case lapha which is very very vulnerable against state. Sengikhambe ngafika kulo kanje ku-advocate Mukhwebane. And u-advocate Mukhwebane, they say abakwazi ukulokanje abakwazi ukuthola i-Department of Education. Igunyazwa i-right waka magistrate uwabhala incwadi against the state. Say for instance the company namapolisa and so 3 of them ne-Eskom. So akunalangi ngakhona ukuthola incedo ngalelo kanje ngale case lena. eBroncosprite bangithumele kwamhlanga bangithi ngiyofuna i-lawyer iseyidle imali eziningi kakhulu. Futhi mase sibala imali esesiyiluzile lana kulelo kanje kule case lena mangibheka lana more than 320,000, of which the msebenzi lona or esikhuluma ngawo about 889,760,000. So ngifisa ukwazi ukuthi singenza kanjani ngoba sengithole incwadi evela ku-advocate Mukhwebane bathi abayazi Department of Education ilo kanje icwetha lithi alikwazi kulwa no-municipality enamaphoyisa.
All right. Abraham, I'm sure you are aware that we're speaking domestic violence tonight, right?
Okay, yes.
I tell you what, at some point, the team is listening to you, and the public protector is going to have a chance here, straight with you. So stay tuned. You are going to have the public protector at some point, and then we will definitely be able to address, because Advocate Praise Kambula is actually responsible for promotion of the rights of vulnerable groups. And as we go into the 25th of November with 16 days and everything, we would really like to focus on this, but without dismissing your question. It's quite very important, but yes, sir.
Yeah, iyayifaka ke nayo domestic violence because u-advocate ulona umagistrate ngendlela ayiweya ngayo wayibheka laphana isikhwalo sami laphana isivela khona ekhaya.
All right. Very well put, Advocate. Let's hear what Advocate Praise Kambula is going to say about it. Thank you so very much. Is there anything else that you would like to raise?
Ngingathokoza ngasishiyela ama-contacts wakhe after this the program, then mhlambe sizokwazi ukuthi mhlambe sibe nenkulumiswano naye direct mhlambe makhona.
Most definitely. Thank you so very much, Abraham.
Am I going to listen to the radio?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. All right. Let's take the last one and then you can respond, Advocate. From Eersterus, Cornita.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you, Cornita?
No complaints. Questions.
No complaints, no questions or comments or something. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you. My question is, being in an abusive relationship, right? It's being physical, and now it's getting financial. And how can I put this? The physical part was, I don't know, can you call it? I don't know. But
economical abuse.
I stayed. I should have left, I stayed. But now, things are getting financial and there's children involved. I would get my salary and I'd have to pay for everything, rent, food, children, the creatures, everything. When he gets paid, he takes his money, goes and drinks, come back tomorrow morning, and then demands food and all this stuff. Now I'm tired. Went to court, asked for them to evict him. They're giving me a protection order to say, because I've been trying to get rid of him, but he refuses to go. And like I said, he's being physical, so it's not like I can pick him up and throw him out. So now they're giving me protection order, but things are continuing. And then you get to, in the first time, he didn't even bother to appear. That's what I'm saying. So now I went back for another protection order, for another date. How do I get these people to get rid of this person? For good.
All right. Is that all, Cornita?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so very much.
Before you can put down,
there you go.
Is he employed?
Not permanently. It's off and on. But like now he's working, and then, but still, he refuses to pay any utilities or give any money towards the children's needs. It's just him.
Okay. All right. So let me just now, which is the last question. The first protection, you say that you have the protection order. Is it the interim protection order or the final protection order?
No, I think it was the interim because, like I said, we went to court to even actually evicted, but then he didn't show up. So now I went back there through the whole process again. They just gave another protection order and another court date for us to appear in January.
Okay, all right.
Are you still staying together, Cornita? In the same space
Yes,
as we speak
in
now.
the same space.
They are sharing residence. Yeah.
Wow. All right, let's listen on the radio for advocate's response, right, Cornet?
Okay.
Thank you so very much for your call.
Thank you much.
All right. Advocate?
I think let me start with the last question. That first, she says that she went to court to apply for an interim protection order. So you cannot have a second protection order when the interim protection order is still there. So when the respondent, because now it is a civil matter, so we call it, the perpetrator is called the respondent. So the respondent, when the respondent failed to appear, and after having been maybe served with summons to come to court, or there's a date that has been set, then the court can actually issue a warrant of arrest for him to come to court. So that is that. So, and then now coming to what she was saying, that it's only just that I do not know what are the terms of the interim protection order. What I can say to her is that she has a right then to request, and she can even, with the interim protection order that she has, which is not yet made final, and have it like a varied request that the respondent be prohibited entry into the shared residence, so that he does not enter where she stays. And she can also, in terms of the Domestic Violence Act, also request the court that to issue an order. That is because she was also saying that now she's subjected to two things, which is physical abuse and economical abuse.
Yes.
Economic abuse. So with economic abuse, then she can ask for an order from the court that will force him to contribute towards the procurement of the household necessities, and also the rent, if there's a rent, or the mortgage bond repayments. So it is in the act. It's got her right to do that. So when you have asked the respondent to leave the shared residence, it doesn't mean that the act will say he will live with his own purse. So he can still carry on with the responsibilities, the financial responsibilities.
Is it domestic abuse if maybe we don't agree on financial contributions and it has more heavier on the other person and less?
Yes, it is.
Is it?
It is called economic abuse. That's economic abuse. And even when you are depriving me the use of something that is in the residence, or is what
It's
we are
my car,
using
you can't
together.
drive it.
Yes.
You can't go to the shops. You can't go see the girls with it.
I don't have to have a legal right to that car. If I have an interest to that car, an interest in that car, that is a legal interest. Legal interest, it means that I didn't pay for it and it's not registered under my name, but it is something that I need to use it maybe to take children to school. So if you deprive me of the use of that car that is registered under your name, and we are sharing residence, and I have a legal interest in it, so then you are subjecting me to economic abuse. And it also goes further to say that if you are forcing me, not to be economical active, not to get in to earn an income or anything. So that is that. And it happens a lot with those people who say that it is my culture that a woman should stay at home and not earn an income. And the Domestic Violence Act calls that economic abuse. So you can go and apply for a protection order.
Right,
now, can I just respond to Patco? Patco
Yeah.
was saying that it's everything in English, but I would like to say to Patco that we have a Section 2 of the Domestic Violence Act that says that when you have gone to police, and the police it forces the police officer who's assisting you to to inform you of your rights in the language in which you best understand. And also when you come to court, the court clerk has to do the same thing and explain your rights in the language of your choice that you understand. And then secondly, the application, because I was talking about the application, the affidavit, that is the application form, whether it is in English or what, we have translated them in all official languages. So when you are in court and you are saying that, you know what, I need to apply for a protection order, but I would prefer a Xhosa version. So you can get that. They will print it for you and give you, because they are all available in all languages, so as not to deprive any person on the ground of language.
All right. Probably we have not thought that the court is able to issue out any documentation in any other language except English. So yes, there you have it.
This act makes it very specific. It is the Domestic Violence Act that actually expressly requires that, the regulations of the Domestic Violence Act. They say that everything must be done in the language which you best prefer.
All right. And then Abraham, how are you able to help Abraham's
I would
story?
say that with Abraham,
does it fall within your, or maybe
I think that
Pussy?
I could see that he is dealing with something that is quite personal.
Yes.
So what I would say is that if you can, as he has already asked for the contact numbers, so we can actually discuss that offline.
Yes.
And be able to, because he's also mentioning domestic violence. So I need to understand in his way, in how does he classify it as, get the whole facts of the situation that is gone through.
Yeah, but just briefly, what can you just advise the public, just a little bit in terms of his story?
In terms of his story?
Yeah, just maybe, what does one do when they go through such kind of situations, just in short?
It's only just that he was not quite open about it.
Oh, yeah.
So that is why I'm saying that we will need to talk and understand what he is actually talking about.
All right. Advocate, before I'm going to take Lydia, and then in response to Lydia, I would also like you to talk about the victim support services, because it's quite very important to give our people help. Lydia. You're now Lydia will go kitchen. How's Lydia? Return le guy. Ono santsane ile ntshulele. Ke ra hona ka ke a uka gore radio e ka kwa wena o ka go dipitseng. Welcome, Osaka.
In the name of Jesus, I'm greeting you and my advocate Kafau in Jesus' name. I just wanted to say in a short, the violence.
I'm also greeting you, Lydia, in the name of Jesus.
Amen, my sister. Yeah, I just want to say that, when we talk about violence against children and women, I've learned that living in abusive relationship means having to commence life from Z to A. Because it may mean we have to go the extra mile and go out to look for employment to earn a living if we were not financially dependent on our husband or partner. So we will have to be responsible for ourselves and our children's life as a partner, as a parent. Because I've learned that starting afresh is not a piece of cake. It takes strength, determination, and a whole lot of courage. So if a woman was dependent on her partner, she will have to learn new independent behaviors. And the woman and her children will probably need to do with less, so as to adjust to the socio-economic imbalance in their lives. So it's very hard for us, and I've learned that commencing anew can be the beginning of the rest of our lives. Difficult as it may be, many women go through a period of self-realization after breaking free from an abusive or violent relationship, because we start blossoms once we stand on our own
Exactly.
feet again. So patience plays a major role in this regard. Try to do one thing at a time. So I've learned that many women, I've learned that, you know, they are depressed. And what I want just to say to them, like in Mafikeng, through Mabatu FM, always we speak about how to help them, because people, they must not give up their lives, but they must give up their pain. You understand?
Yes.
And then because true peace comes from God. He's the only one who can give it to us, no one else. And I've learned that, you know, drugs, I want to say to all the people that drugs cannot heal a broken heart. Because many times our hearts are broken, you know, because you have so many problems, but now you kill yourself. It's not the solution. And even drugs or to drink too much won't heal our broken heart. We need to come back to God. I'm saying it again. We need to come to God. Why I'm saying like that? Because
Lydia, we're gonna have to edit. I got another caller, and we're gonna have to close at 5:00. So, what's your last comment to that regard?
Okay, no, I just wanted to say that, you know, it's good when there is counseling, you know, all these things, they must be done, and pastors, they must be involved in these things.
Exactly.
Pastors, yes. Because without pastors, the world is dead. I believe like that. So thank you.
All right.
And my sister there in Jesus' name, amen.
All right. Thank you so very much for a wonderful comment, Lydia. And also, not just involving Christianity only, but involve Muslim, involve traditional African, because I believe humanity has one common goal, the good. And it's not only through one particular approach, but it's through a humanly approach, which Christianity is one part of it.
Yeah, I understand the approach here. Okay, what she's actually saying is that God is love.
Yes.
And where there is love, there cannot be no violence.
And God is for everyone.
Exactly.
Yes, that's where I'm coming from. All right, let's do Unati. Talk to Unati in Cape Town. Hello, Unati.
Hello.
How are you doing, my brother?
I'm fine, and you?
All right, quick, my leader. Maybe if you can do it in 2 minutes.
I can yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to ask.
I like that.
Just want to ask you, because I hear everyone is talking about Ilandoza in the protection order now. You go in protection order. That don't understand, and understand in the kind of significance like your protection order. Because to me, it's like it's just a paper, and it's just a paper, because there will be a protection order. But whom do you get and to learn them to only stand at the ambulance, go to FIPA, my police, and everything. So, so 18 and protection order. No one's a liba, bandu, by respect, and because I want to buy you, to learn the gym.
All right. In consequences, when unat, it is something that I did not say to Kukonita. That I'm saying that in the legal consequences, that if somebody violates, it's when you are saying that it's a paper. Of course, it is a paper, but it is a paper that's got legal consequences. It has legal teeth. But then, if you keep it and not use it, then it will not work for you. So what it means is that when you have received a protection order, it's got a number of terms there that says that the person who's subjecting you to violence should not do 1, 2, 3, 4. They are all counted there. So should he violate any of what he was prohibited from doing, then it constitutes a crime. And it also, the act says that you can go to the nearest police station to have the order reinforced. So you can go to any country, Unati. In terms of domestic violence, there's always a protection order that is issued, and it's issued in a paper form, or it might not be in a paper form, but it depends on the response of the person, the attitude of the person, but it is a crime to violate it, and it is a crime that is punishable by our courts.
Okay, so there is responsibility is based kulomntu beyivulile to know zonke the terms and conditions. So if ever ubona ibreak loo nto ayazi nepoint bayithini ubreak loo nto. So
yes.
And
it sukuya it go to the nearest police station to have the person arrested. Let me also say to you, Unati, xa uyifumanayo i-protection order court, uyifumana ne-suspended warrant of arrest. Is-suspended in the sense that should the person that the order has been issued against violate any of the terms of the protection order, when you don't even have to go to court, you already have a warrant of arrest. And what it says that go to any police station, the police station that is nearby, and have the warrant of arrest executed by the police. And if the police do not want to execute that order, then you can take it straight to and make a complaint to the civilian secretariat for police. Those are the measures that are there. But I don't want to say to you that there are no people who die holding the protection order. Why? It is because we cannot legislate against an attitude, but we legislate against an act and a behavior and an actus reus of somebody. So what it means is that we need then people, when you have a protection order, don't keep it. Quickly act on it as soon as there is a violation. Don't wait for a bigger thing to happen, because that bigger thing might be your death.
All right. And go Snati, right?
Okay, sure.
Shut that. All right. Advocate, quickly, let's talk about the support measures, services, and help that we have as the department. I know clinics, sometimes counselors in the most local of the locals, probably abafundi, sibaya, CISA, and all that kind of stuff. But from the legal part of victim support, what's in store for the
I will just focus on the Act itself. The Act has got a provision, which is Section 11, that says that when I testify in court, I can testify in camera. So I can testify in privacy. So meaning that I can testify not in the physical presence of the abuser. And for many reasons. Sometimes it is the stare that frightens me. It is the tone that frightens me. So that's the first support service. So when you go to court, you must know that I can ask that I not testify in his presence. It is your right. And then secondly, he is not allowed to cross-examine you directly if he is not represented. He must ask the question. If he wants to ask a question, he asks the question via the magistrate, and the magistrate then will put the question to you. And the reason for that is because of the issues of the tone and all that, because people get traumatized by hearing that tone. So the Act protects you from having that. And the third thing, which is a support service that is offered by the Act, it says that to come to court, you can come with not more than 3 support persons. So meaning that it understands the fact that as I'm going to court, I might be scared, and not want to do it on my own. I need support. And I want to say that when you have come to court with your support persons, you need to notify the court that you're going to be coming with your people, so that they also, if it's a criminal matter, then they will get the witness fees, which is the fee for you, the traveling and the food allowance. And the other thing now, which is the last thing, is that which is also a support, is that when you do not want to come to court because you are scared, so you can have a person who's got a material interest in your well-being to come and apply for a protection order on your behalf. So it could be your sister, it could be your brother, it could be your neighbor, it could be your friend, it could be your parent, it could be your employer, it could be the police, a social worker, and even the healthcare practitioner, and all that. All those people are entitled to go and apply for a protection order on your behalf. And the only thing that you need to do is just to take a piece of paper, and then then you write there and say that I authorize Praise Kambula to apply for a protection order on my behalf. And the forms for the protection order are available in our website. So you just go to the website, you get the affidavit, that is the application form. So it makes it easy then for you just to print it and start writing your application at home in the comfort of your home, and then you take it to court. But now we are moving towards creating e-services in terms of the application, so that people are able to apply online instead of coming to court. So that is something that we are working on right now, and we will include it as we're going to be amending the legislation. So there are a number of support services, as I'm saying, that people need to know about them.
Yes.
And you are not forced to come to court alone. You can have your accompaniment. We call them the court accompaniment services. And even the person who's your support service, when it is time for you to testify, you can say that I need that person next to me. That person is just giving you the support. He's not going to say anything. You see? So there are so many things that, you can. There's nothing that is making you as a victim of domestic violence to stay at home. Because if you stay at home, you will... There's one consequence that is awaiting you, and is death.
All right. I wish we could have more time to talk, Advocate. I mean, the traditional part of things we have not actually looked into. Other things, the religious part of it, where we know in other countries and in other religions, in other cultures, we've spoken a little bit about that. And if it's traditional, we might find it like it does not make sense legally, those kind of things. But thank you so very much for where we are, and I'm definitely sure that we're going to have another session where we talk about domestic violence. Remember, from the 25th to the 10th of December, 25th November to 10th of December 2019, it will be the 16 days of activism. So play your part. Be active. South Africans need to be active to make sure that South Africa becomes a better place. Thanks to people who are active: Patko, Abraham, Konita, Lydia from Mafike, and Unati, who got to be quite very active today and actually expressed some of the experiences we encounter in our communities. From me, Mosotho Stone, thank you so very much, Advocate, and good night.
Thank you.